Two of the greatest monster characters in Marvel history are the Thing and the Incredible Hulk. They've had a number of battles over the years. One of my favorite things in comics is to see them battle. But in 1987, Jim Starlin and Byrne Wrightson put them in a graphic novel that was a cosmic buddy cop type story. And it's so much fun. I'm going to put it under the microscope today. Stay tuned and watch this video until the end. Hey, we're back. My name is Taylor. This is Taylor Talks Comics. Thank you for joining me. Please give the video a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts and your favorite comic with featuring the Thing and the Hulk would be great. I'd like to hear those comments. And subscribe if you haven't already. I'm doing 31 days of horror comics all throughout the month of October. Every day I'm doing a different video on a different horror comic or horror comic related topic. If you happen to miss out on those or you want to catch up, I have a handy dandy playlist set up in the playlist tab of my channel called Halloween Horrors 2025. And if you're wanting to get in the extra spooky mood, I have one playlist for last year when I did this. But yes, today we're talking about the Hulk Thing Big Change is what the story's called. And it's featured here in the Thing Omnibus. That's how I'm going to be showing it off for you. I wish I had the original graphic novel, just the original version of it. I kind of want that, and I kind of want to get the Spider-Man one that Byrne Wrightson did also called Hooky. There's a lot of good Byrne Wrightson artwork in that as well. If you have been watching my videos so far for the month, and you happen to be watching, and you happen to watch specifically the top 10 horror artists video, you know that Byrne Wrightson is my #1 favorite horror comic book artist. And it's for a lot of things that we have in here that we'll see. So here's the cover of the graphic novel. Also used it for the thumbnail today. And it does, the one thing I do have a question for you. If you know the answer to this, let me know in the comments. But Byrne Wrightson would often flip back and forth between spelling his first name with 2 E's, like an E on the end, and without it. Is there a difference? Is there a correlation to when he uses the E on the end and when he doesn't? So let me know in the comments. I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, here's the cover for it. These were released on their own as an OGN, as an original graphic novel, and called a Marvel graphic novel. And they had a separate price point and things. Like this was in $1987. This was $5.95. And it was one complete package. They're really fun to collect too, because they usually gave the artists and writers more freedom. Usually got some top-notch artists in those. Let me know in the comments too what your favorite Marvel graphic novel is. I'd love to compile a list together for that. I know I certainly could add to a list such as that. Here's the opening title page that was on the inside of the cover. And you see right here, Carl Potts was the title designer. So he designed this title on both here and there. But the all the credits, the stories by Jim Starlin, arts by Byrne Wrightson. And he's the only one listed in the art. So he does the coloring, the inking, and the penciling in this graphic novel. It does everything, which is awesome to see Byrne Wrightson work with colors, because these graphic novels also had bigger budgets and higher quality production. So Byrne Wrightson was able to use some like painting and stuff that you can't use with your typical CMKY printing process that they'd use for their monthly comics. And then Jim Novak is listed as the letterer and Al Milgram as the editor. So we start off and you see this great picture. There's so many good uses, because this is not like overly bloody or gory or anything, but there's so many good like allusions to that Byrne Wrightson gets away with in here. And Byrne Wrightson as being like typically a horror artist, it's cool to see that. Like right here, this opening page, just looking at it, you're like, what the heck is, even my son when I was flipping through this was like, is the Thing bleeding? Like it looks like he's like bleeding from his skull. And you're like, can he even bleed? What's going on? But no, it's just a Nancy gang member threw a tomato at his head. Right? And the Thing says, you just threw your last tomato. Because the Nancy Street gang is throwing stuff at him. Now here's a really cool piece too. One of my favorite things to see, period, is like retellings of origin stories by different artists. Like one time, I'd like to put together a zine of all the times that different artists interpreted the origin story of the Fantastic Four when they just do it across like 1 or 2 pages. And to see like what the different artists like pull from that origin story and what's important to them to convey. And you always have to have a scene where the cosmic rays are hitting the 4 astronauts. You see them getting onto the ship. And I do love that they're wearing their like the Challengers Unknown outfits. I feel like that's kind of, I don't know if that's a deliberate homage from Byrne Wrightson for that. Sorry, there's something on the page. And and then they hit the rocket. Now this is all from the Thing's perspective, so he's the most important figure in this piece. And I love this panel layout here, where it's like it's one image, but it's broken up into panels where you see each title of each character, and the Thing is the one that's broaching over the panel borders. Like even like Fantastic Four's thumb isn't going over the panel border; it's just the Thing. So it really puts a focus on him. And then here's the four of them together, and he's the only one with his eyes open. I do also love that I think this is 1987. This came out. No, John Byrne had left a couple years before. Okay. But this had like the weird mulleted hairstyle, which I absolutely hated in the John Byrne run of Sue Storm. She had so many different hairstyles throughout the John Byrne run that are all awful. I could go on rants for days about that. But I love the John Byrne Fantastic Four run, don't get me wrong. It's just Sue Storm's hair was not great. So now the Thing is chasing the Nancy Street Gang member, and he finds three of them. It's clobbering time. All the great hits of like what you expect from Hulk and Thing are all throughout here. But it is like a buddy cop kind of comedy, but done with like aliens and monsters and things. And then he just disappears all of a sudden. And he appears where this giant statue of the Thing is, and this farmer guy. And this kind of reminds me, it's kind of reminiscent of like of Superman's origin, when he crashes and then a farmer obviously finds him. I don't know if that's what they're going for there, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. It's just such an iconic comic book moment, right? And the Thing's talking to him. He's like, what's going on? Why do you have the statue here? And then all of a sudden Hulk appears and just lands directly on the statue and smashes it. And there's lettering here, which I don't think this was Jim Novak. There's a few spots throughout this entire graphic novel where there's like this lettering that's like inside the art. And I think that's got to be all Byrne Wrightson, because it's so a part of the artwork itself that I think that's got to be Byrne doing that. So then Hulk appears here, and then we get the Hulk's origin story, where you see him throwing away Rick Jones and trying to save his life, and then the big giant atom bomb or gamma bomb, and then he turns into the Hulk. So we get a cool little origin story drawn by Byrne Wrightson of the Hulk, which is awesome. And then they both disappear, Hulk and Thing, and they're going through the space image here, which you don't see Byrne Wrightson drawing a lot of space adventures. So anytime there's like cosmic scenes in here, it's really cool. But remember, Jim Starlin's writing this, and Jim Starlin was like most famous for his cosmic adventures. And then they just go onto this planet. Now the Watcher's going to talk. And this is a cool part, because this basically these 2 pages are all exposition from Starlin explaining their situation. Which the situation in this is that they meet this alien gangster, they meet this alien, and he wants them to go retrieve something from this alien gangster, and then when he comes back, he will grant the Thing and the Hulk one wish of whatever they want, like whatever they dream of, they can wish for. And he even explains this to him in the fact that like I could turn you both back human, and here's what that would look like. And the Thing's like, we could be human. Don't you want to be Bruce Banner? And he's like, I hate Bruce Banner, or Hulk hates Bruce Banner. So that's the deal. And then here's another great lettering by Byrne Wrightson. And look at this too, like all of the coloring throughout here is amazing as well. I don't know the quality of the reproduction in this. I think the fidelity of it's pretty good. From what I've seen of the graphic novel, I've never seen one in person. I've just seen images online and things. I think it's pretty good. Let me know in the comments if you have that graphic novel and how this holds up. So I do know like Marvel has history of their restoration for older comics not being so great, but I think this looks pretty good. And even just all the layering of the painting and stuff, like this is some of the best coloring in a comic that I've read before. And guys like Byrne Wrightson and Richard Corbin, both, when they started doing like the color stories within the Warren mags, where you have like Creepy and Eerie magazine that they both worked in, and it's in the Warren mags would allow them to do some color sometimes later in the run. It seemed like almost like Wrightson and Corbin were competing to see like who could do the best coloring, because they were both magnificent at it. So now they go to this other planet where they're trying to retrieve this secret thing in order to get their wish, and they have to wear disguises. So Hulk is like, Hulk needs disguise too. Now no one will notice Hulk either. Lovely. So I love the interactions too, because they're not battling throughout this. So you don't see Hulk and Thing battle, which is unfortunate. I would have loved to see a big battle, a fist fight between the two of them. Like I said in the preamble, one of my favorite things in all of Marvel Comics is a good Thing versus Hulk battle. And it would have been cool to see Wrightson draw that, but this is more of a buddy cop situation. But I do love the dynamic between the two, because Hulk is like kind of dumb and Thing is like as smart as Reed Richards. Like he probably feels a little bit like Reed Richards in this moment, because he's like, why am I so smart compared to this idiot? And look at these grotesque alien monsters that Wrightson's drawing. Like, that's such a Lovecraftian, like, undescribable monster or like the old gods that Lovecraft would talk about a lot. And just the color work on the alien monster alone. Here's some more good lettering. That one might have been Jim Novak. I don't know. I just have to think that all the sound effects has to be Wrightson. But it is colored differently on that than like this, where it says Skash. That looks like Wrightson, maybe, and that looks, I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you know the delineation of the labor on the lettering. And here's another one that works with the artwork, Splat. Like that, I love that lettering. And then Powell right here. And then Thing's like, okay, I guess we have to go do some more walking. And the Hulk says, this not walking, this falling. And this is another great piece of coloring. Like doing the light from this alien right here, which is so reminiscent of like a Spielberg, like E.T. or Close Encounters movie. But like that coloring right there it's just mind-blowing. Because I don't think that's digital. I don't think they had digital coloring that could do that in 1987. Because digital coloring usually came into comics in the early 90s. So I think it's all right. So I don't know what the process would even look like for this type of coloring, but that's just amazing work there. But then, so I said like Close Encounters and E.T., but then it turns into this like giant like War of the Worlds type alien Martian monster, which Spielberg also did a movie of that as well. Again, just the lighting on this, which Byrne Wrightson was a master of lighting, like absolutely just mind-blowingly good when it came to lighting. But like having this bright light shining on them, it's just incredible work. So this comic, like people have said like this comic's not very good, like the story's kind of lame or it's kind of empty on the story, but it's a fun story. First of all, I don't think it's not meant to be Watchmen or anything. Splash, here's more good lettering. But the artwork is just mind blowing. Like this is just Wrightson doing Marvel characters and doing them better than anyone else ever. Like I don't know that there's a lot of examples of better artwork of these two characters done by an artist. I love all the character design that went into all these little monsters and aliens and stuff that they're being surrounded by. Like that's such an amazing image. And this right here too. So they leave them all in their wake. Again, like rather than have like all the blood and gore and fist fights and things, it's just kind of left to the imagination, but you still get this amazing Wrightson artwork where they just leave them all to pieces here. Now they found Banger's place. And that's the gangster that is who they're trying to confront to get the secret thing that the previous alien wanted. And then smash, more good title lettering right there. And that's when they meet Banger McCrusher, who's like this amalgamation of Thing and Hulk. And you can see he's even more giantly massive than him. And I looked this up, and no writer has ever used Banger McCrusher again. And I don't know why. It seems like such a cool character, an obvious character to bring back. Like, even like the Immortal Hulk run, I think he could have been a character. Now, there was a certain thing where, with the Epic line in the Marvel graphic novels, there was some sort of creator ownership of those. So I don't know if that's what's going on with Banger, if that's why no one else has used him or not. But if I was a writer for Marvel and DC, that's the kind of stuff I'd be bringing back, like these small little one-happen characters that would remind people of these older comics that were so good. Banger McCrusher spitting Hulk out. I love this image too, where they're running at Banger, and he's got him in like, look at the scale. He's got both of them in his fist, and one of his fists is the Thing, one's the Hulk. But then he also is smart enough to use the Thing hand to hold the Hulk, and the Hulk hand to hold the Thing. Wrightson was just such a genius of an artist. And then they both punch him. Crack! It's smashing time instead of clobbering time. They mashed up their moves. It's like they're like in pro wrestling when two rivals have to team together in order to try to win the tag team championships. They mash up their finishing move. And then they hand the alien this card thing that he wanted. They finally get back there, and the guy's just eating food, and then he puts whatever he wanted, the sauce on there, and the whole thing is like, what? You mean the Hulk and I went through all that grief just for some cosmic A1 sauce? Again, just a funny little punchline at the end. And then comes the time for their wish, where they're going to tell him what they wish for, and it's going to be granted. And Hulk chimes in, cuts the thing off, and says, as the thing's trying to think in bed, it's like, man, do I want to turn back human? I don't know. And Hulk just says, we want food and want to go home. And things like, what? Like, he used both their wishes. And then they get back home in a pile of hamburgers. And the thing's like, you just blew both our wishes. Put some ketchup on it. And then we finish with the thing picking up a giant rock to smash the Hulk. Like, that's like such a fun story with such amazing artwork by Byrne Wrightson. I think that's it. I don't think there's a back cover. Yeah. But it's such a cool comic. I don't know. Byrne Wrightson doing this. And Spider-Man Hooky is another good one. Jim Starlin didn't write that. I forget who wrote it. It was I think it was a lady that wrote it who didn't write comics a lot. But I do want to get that so I can show it off maybe next year for my 31 Days of Horror comics. Because I don't think I'll get it in time for this one. But, yeah, anytime Byrne Wrightson's drawing monsters, though, I'm there for it. He's my favorite horror artist, and now I'm just like on the warpath to find as much Byrne Wrightson comics as I could find. But thank you guys for watching. Give the video a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts. Tell me your favorite Marvel graphic novel. Tell me your favorite Hulk and Thing fight. Tell me your favorite Byrne Wrightson comic. I want to talk to you guys down in the comments. And then subscribe if you haven't already. We are closing up. We're getting close to the end of my 31 Days of Horror comics. So far, I haven't missed a day. Thanks to you guys for your support on that. And we'll only continue. So make sure to subscribe and don't miss out on that. And everyone, keep talking comics.